Abise Sudu to be very precise. Uh, and then I am a member of Elmina Festivals and Ceremonies Planning Committee, as well as his. Okay.
My name is Grace Ayensu. I'm a director of the Elmina Heritage Foundation, and I'm a heritage advocate. I've been working with different projects to conserve various heritage assets.
My name is Sandy White. I'm from Oakland, California, and I am here exploring ways to integrate my skills with local businesses and communities on projects that impact human condition and also cultural heritage. I am my father is from African American descent. My mother is from Czechoslovakia descent. And so I have been in the mixed world in California, and you'd be surprised the lack of acceptance in either one of those buckets. So it's interesting to learn that there is a mulatto club. Maybe we can learn some things from here going forward. So I'm really excited to listen to the discussion today.
My son will join you.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Thank you. So we'll make introductions. Maybe you can say a few words. Just introduce yourself.
I am Anthony Anambra, an Elminian and a retired university professor of veterinary science.
A local historian.
No, that one is a hobby. I don't think I am a historian. It's a hobby to learn.
So we have some visitors. Maybe they can introduce themselves. Start with you.
My name is Fred Van Dyke.
Peter.
My name is Fred Van Dyke, and I come from Elmina, and I'm very interested in Elmina's development.
Okay. Charles, give me a hand.
Yes.
Yeah, so my name is Calvin Bandy. So I also have a heritage here in Elmina, and we've done some work in the past, as a non-profit, with various people on the beach. So when we heard that there was something happening here about the development of Elmina, we're interested. So that's how come we're here.
We have some people online.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think I'm done here.
Yes, my name is Frank Shinbakodia. I'm also from Elmina, and I'm also a part of the Elmina Development Program. Yes, I organized with Suzanne. Yes. All right. I remember you. Thank you very much.
So good morning again. I made a few introductory remarks before everybody sat down, and I'll maybe just repeat myself very briefly. A couple of years ago, Grace, is it 2 years now? Wow, time flies. We had a similar meeting where we were discussing the idea of an Elmina Heritage Foundation. What could we do as people from Elmina to help our hometown? And the seminal idea was promoting Elmina as a tourist destination and promoting the heritage of Elmina, given its real historical significance. And the fact that we felt that it was underplayed, not fully understood, not well told, and what could we do to tell that story in its completeness, and how could we have that expressed physically in museums, in our engagement with the schools, and so on and so forth. And subsequently, we we've sat down to do some work around that, and we want to talk about that today and really move that conversation forward. One of the things that we're very happy today about is that we've had a conversation with the Elmina Development Fund. Is that the right word? Elmina Development Foundation, which in a way is an organization that has similar goals. And the idea is, how can we all work together for the same idea? And we don't necessarily have to be one organization. We can be separate, but we have the same vision of promoting Elmina as a heritage site. But around the room, we have really a whole spectrum of skills and experience and knowledge. We have architects, historians, researchers, who can help us reach that goal. What we do recognize is that if we really want to achieve some of the ideas we have in mind, we need to raise a lot of money to do that. And so we need to be very clear what it is we're trying to do. We can't afford to be vague or general and unfocused. We need to be very clear. So we have done some work around that. And after we met 2 years ago, we've done a little bit of work on putting that foundation together. What we'd like to do today is to then say, okay, yes, we are aligned with those goals or not. And if we are aligned, how do we go about achieving them? This is really the purpose of today's meeting. We're not trying to get from 0 to 100 today. That's not the purpose of today. The purpose of today is to sort of check what it is we're trying to do, and then how are we going about it. And then maybe success would be, what are those immediate next steps over the next 9 to 12 months that we can build upon to achieve our goal. Grace will give us some background, but let me just make some preliminary comments. And I know people like Anthony in particular have the history and the background, and maybe we will ask him to say a few words in a few minutes. But this idea is not a new one. And in fact, my father and others, David Awatri, had the Save Elmina Society that went on many years. And then after that, I think, I'm not sure, maybe you could help us with that. We were able to raise 2.5 million euro to refurbish the Dutch houses, am I right? Not that much, well, he will tell us. 1.6, there you go. So it's not a new idea, but I think what we'd really like to do is really amplify and elevate the effort. You know, we've got a lot of interested parties outside this room who may be joining online. We've had some preliminary conversations with people from Elmina who sit in London and Portugal and other places who are very interested in what we're doing, who have the means, who have a network, who have the skills. And it's really about how do we align, how do we harness that effort, initiative to get to where we want to. So, as I said, today is just background, alignment, and how do we go forward. So maybe, Grace, my suggestion is share the mission of what we're trying to do, and then I wouldn't mind having Anthony give us some historical background as to how we get there, or sort of, not how we get there, but the history we're trying to weave together. So, all right, Grace? You're doing the bite still.
Yes,
Okay.
Well, I suppose I can speak to
Sure.
Elmina Heritage Foundation is about.
Do you want to use the loudspeaker for those who might be online?
So I think we all know the significance of Elmina in sort of our global history. It's the first place of sustained European and African engagement. And beyond the history of the sort of the trade in gold, the transatlantic slave trade. What we have right now has been a narrative about Elmina's history that has not really originated from the local space. And so we're in a particular geopolitical moment that requires us to sort of reclaim our own heritage and our narrative around our heritage. And the foundation is based upon that need. I think we can also all agree that moving forward, if we're thinking about the development of Ghana, you know, one that we definitely need to capture is our own history and our heritage, and get that deep understanding of that embeddedness in that narrative to help propel us forward. And so this organization really is about the reclaiming that agency in telling our story, centering us in that narrative. I think we have so far a lot of the narrative about this engagement with the transatlantic slave trade. You know, our history has been told from let's call it a diasporic perspective. And then also to use that as a way, as a mode to develop Elmina. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in Elmina, and I think that our heritage, you know, that's the reason for the organization. The heritage is the way to do that. Can you please scroll up for us, please, a little bit? Up. We have.
So I think you could.
Sure.
But do you want to continue? Or?
I think that what would be great at this point would be for Professor Anand to give us a little bit of a background. So a few years ago, as Kweku mentioned, we met here and
read the history as there's a strong argument that says, you know, without that wealth, you know, that the New World would not have been discovered and built upon, etc. So our thinking really is, how do we tell that story properly and fully? And our goal eventually is to raise sufficient funds, refurbish our current repository knowledge, if you like, the museums. So Elmina Castle, Cape Coast Castle, there's an ecosystem, and perhaps build new ones. When we started this idea a couple of years ago, one of our colleagues who sadly passed had an idea of a women's museum. And we, you know, she had started it, and it was a very powerful idea because the Women's Museum, you could tell all manner of stories. So much more to the Elmina story than that. And then there's a story around gold. And I had a conversation with the Asante Hini's secretary. We talked about the gold museum in Kumasi. We could do a gold. So there are many threads to the Elmina story that we feel haven't been told in its completeness. And we're saying to ourselves, what if we could raise $50 million to really redevelop, refurbish, build new museums, and tell that story in its completeness? And people will come, and they will want a place to stay, and people want to build hotels and nice boutique hotels, and a way to really promote and develop Elmina. And obviously not just hotels and tourism, because we have some of that, but also use those revenue streams to address some of the socioeconomic challenges that Elmina has, which we are all also well aware of. Unemployment, sanitation, the roads. I mean, who would want to come to Elmina with bad roads or with dirt all over the place or with the kind of, you know, stuff we see on the beaches? Do the kind of things that other people. We realize that it's not going to happen overnight. We realize it's going to take a number of years and a lot of money. We've talked about that. But we actually do believe that we have the network and the resources to get that done. We have a lot of very well-known sons of Elmina who have a network who can help us with that. We have even people in this room who can help us tell the story. At the beginning of this exercise is what is the story and getting that story right. And so the immediate part of what we are thinking is let's get the story right in its fullness. We won't get it done today, but let's put it together and get it out there in the world to raise those funds so that we can actually express it in those buildings, the museums, and other ways that we think we can help Elmina. And so that's the broad idea of it. And maybe at this point some newcomers came. Maybe, I don't think any, those who came after I came, you can introduce yourself before we ask Doc and Pratt to say a few words. Maybe you can say a few words yourself.
Right, thank you for the opportunity. My name's Nana Kwamina Ngwando the Fourth. I'm the chief of Semio and also the Adontehene of Edna traditional area. Yeah, the little I would say is that I've been observing the conversation so far. I feel within me that something great it's likely to come out of this meeting. The traditional council being represented by me, I can confidently say that we will give our support regardless and make sure this mission with a great vision will be realized. Given the activities that I've seen so far, I haven't gotten so much information, but the little activities we've gotten so far, I think it's right in line with what the traditional council, our Mahin, his vision for Elmina is, because Central Region is largely noted for tourism. That is the only low-hanging fruit that we can plug and quickly make, good use of it. So I think we are on the right path, and Traditional Council will give our support. We are only hoping that we will be involved through and through at any point in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adontehene. So we're going to go around the room at some point. We do want to invite Anthony to give us some historical perspective, Doc, about that history.
The heritage is both tangible heritage and intangible heritage. And we are talking about a town whose name we are wrong. The town is Anomansa. Elmina connotes an area from this town up to Shama, where gold could be harvested, although there are towns and villages in between. Another name for Elmina, people say, is Edina. Edina is also not the name of the town. It's corrupted from the Portuguese word Adia, which means village. So when the Portuguese made the Elmina Castle a Portuguese city 4 years after building it, it was a city, and the rest to the west was called the village. So when people worked in the castle, they said they are going to their Adia village. And the word has become Edina. The Portuguese will also name the town Adia de Duas Partes, a village of two parts. 4, to the east-west of the Benya River used to be a Futu kingdom, which was annexed to the town by the Portuguese. So that is it. So it is Elmina, Edina, Adia de Duas Partes, Amankwakru. The other name is Amankwakru, after the founder. But the traditional name is Anomansa. Enoma onsa man. Inexhaustible supply of water. That is the real name. But this is the name that internationally we are known. Perhaps it becomes convenient to use that instead of letting people ask, what is Anomansa man? What is Edna? So it is something that we can discuss, whether we maintain that name, Elmina. In the Sahel region has pushed migration of the peoples from the Ghana, Songhai, and Mali empires downwards, and at Techiman. From Techiman, the people who now constitute Elmina went through Kokofu. So Elmina chief stool is from Kokofu. And we have a password. When an Asante hen dies and you are captured and you are to be beheaded for the rituals, if you give that password, because our stool is from Kokofu, you won't be beheaded. Then from Kokofu to Yabio, from Yabio to Iguafu. It was from Iguafu that Kwamankwa, the founder of the town, went a-hunting and stumbled upon the stream which flows as Benya River. Benya River is not a salty river. It is actually potable river. That is why the town is inexhaustible supply of water. It appears salty because at high tide, the sea flows about 6 kilometers inside. And so as you go inside, the salinity of the river decreases. Now, the Portuguese landed in Ghana in 1471, and that was at Shama. And Mr. Awatri has given the prelude that Henry de Escobar has started expeditions from Portugal to find the source of gold which crosses the Sahara. And by 1460, he had died. Yes, he had died. And his endeavor was continued by the brother Alphonsus, who commissioned Fernando Gomez to explore 10 leagues a year. Then Fernando Gomez had also engaged Pedro de Escobar and Peter Santarem, who arrived in January 1471 at Shama. Looking for water, they found gold. And so for 9 years, they traded in gold dust. But those who have been to Shama will realize that the place is rocky. Now, the discussion went on that they put a fortress where they will station people to do the buying, so that when people came from Portugal, within the next day they go. So they would have finished purchasing the gold in exchange for the goods that they brought from. So that was in 1482 that the decision was made. And to get approval, they have asked Pope Sixtus the Sixth to grant an indulgence that whoever participated in the construction of the St. George's Castle get plenary indulgence. That means your sins are forgiven. Because apart from putting the castle, it was a way of spreading the Catholic Church, okay, evangelization. That is why I say the heritage is both tangible and intangible. So, on the 20th of January 1482, that was on the feast of St. Fabian and St. Sebastian, the first recorded Catholic Mass was celebrated under a tree where the castle is. So the first Catholics said that they worshipped under the shade of a tree. And a tree is called Dua. They call it tree of life. Unkwa Dua. Unkwa Dua. That means the tree of life. So the first worshippers called themselves Nkwaduafu. Or Nkwaduase Asumfu. And the word has been corrupted to Kondua. So you see that all the chiefs of Elmina are Catholics, those who bear the name Kundua Akariks. That was the time of our sixth chief, Nana Kwame Nansa. Nana Kwame Nansa did not like that the castle is put there. He says something like this: the sea and the land are just a post. The sea is always trying to take the land, and the land is pushing it back to it. When white people arrive here, they will try to colonize us. So that they represent the sea, and the land are the Elminians must push them back. So it's better that they go and come, not to put the castle. But the instruction to Don Diego de Azambuya, who came with 600 men, 100 of which are artisans and 500 soldiers, they were to build the castle by persuasion or by force. So the castle was put there. It is a long story telling you about the type of trade. When they took gold and they gave us brass, rum, textiles, what? Alcohol, etc. Beads. And so please help me. I am not a repository of, yes. Please, somebody said mirror. And they took gold. For, yeah. No, for Elminians, gold meant nothing. Because you see, the chief of Elmina does not put gold on the body. He rather put leaves harvested from the University of Cape Coast on the east, and a salmon winds it and binds the powers that threaten Elmina and puts it. So the chief of Elmina, in due course, when he dresses like a chief, is actually a spiritual leader. And so those who observe Elmina chief, sometimes they think that he's misbehaving. But a lot of times, when he meets a spirit, he becomes possessed. And that's what he does. It is for Elminians to explain what it does. Now, the Portuguese were here to 1637 when they were kicked away by the Dutch. I'm trying to say it. How many minutes? 3 minutes.
Keep going.
In 1637, the Dutch defeated the Portuguese after 4 attempts. And when the Dutch were present, they had a different way of living with Elminians. Of course, there was the infamous slave trade. But apart from that, they married legally. And so there are about 110 mulatto families in Elmina alone. You can get their names from my
I think the Van Dykes are one of them.
Van Dykes, unfortunately, Van Boven, Hoy de Cooper, Rour, Planche, the name is Planche, Battels, etc. They are all mulatto, Froom, etc. They are all, so there are about 110 of them. Zwenis, and all that. And they had a cultural impact. This morning we said something like Yahan is the Fanti form of Joanna. Kate, the Fanti name is Kitsina. Jacob, the Elmina name is Jacob. Martha is Maita. Teresa is Mama Tisa, and all that, you see. So that is what I'm saying, that Elmina has got tangible and intangible heritage. So the Dutch were here from 1637, but then you see there was difficulty administratively on the Gold Coast. Now, in Sekendi, we have Fort Orange, that's British. When you come to Commander, we have a British fort. You go to Dutch Commander, we have a Dutch fort. You come to Elmina, we have a Dutch fort and a Dutch castle. You go to Cape Coast, you have a British one, you go to Anamabos, Metacross, etc. So there were enclaves that they found difficult administratively. Rationalize this by dividing Ghana into west and east by a river called the Sweet River. And the village there is called Itre. Is that right? But Itre is a corrupted form of estuary. Estuary because the Kakum River, the what river? Kakum River, the Nkontro River, and Sweet River, they all entered the sea. But that one didn't also work. And so there was exchange of territories where the British gave Indonesia, Suriname, Java to the British. And the Dutch in turn gave Elmina, New Amsterdam, that is, New Amsterdam is New York, etc., as a package. And so that each colonial power had the whole country. But when this exchange of territories was done, Elmina was not informed. And so Elmina rebelled under its chief, Nana Kobnejan. And that led to the bombardment and destruction of the original Elmina before the castle in 1873. So a lot of people left Elmina until around 1930 when they started coming in. Now, when the Dutch had left, what had happened? The Portuguese brought Catholicism, but the Dutch were not Catholics. They were Calvinists. And so their church is now the foundation of Itiapa Hall, which is for the Methodist Church. Now, the second thing is education. Only mulatto people were given a lot of education. For the Dutch religion, they sent Jacobus Kapitein to Holland to train as a priest. But then, training there, he did not see what slavery was. So he wrote his thesis that the Bible is not against slavery, quoting Abraham had Hagar. So everybody had a slave. So the Bible justifies slavery. And so it was a very good thesis for the Dutch. And the Dutch had no qualms in continuing slavery. And so when you go to the castle, you will see that the female slave dungeon is down. On top of it is the Dutch Calvinist church. It is written, Zion is the dwelling place of the Lord. And it's just above because they justified themselves. But the Dutch also, because of their mulatto children, impacted on the military organization of Ghana, of Elmina. So 10 Asafo companies were carved out of the single Wombi Asafo companies. But their children and their servants also formed separate military companies. So their children, they are called Abrofumba. When we are at war, they are at home as home police. And their servants, those who don't go to work, they are called Akrampafu and Abrofumba. The others, there was number 5 is the nominal navy. Number 4, Womirfo, is the infantry. Number 2 is technically the Air Force. So you see that the symbol is the eagle. Oh, but we didn't have planes. Then Alatamanfo and the rest. So the military organization and military protection of the town. So if you are conversant with Elmina, on every conceivable hill in Elmina, there was a fort. So you have got the castle, then you have got Fort Kuransburg, that you call it Jago. So you see that when there's attack from behind Fort Jago, you will alert the castle. Now, behind Fort Jago is the Catholic Church Hill. It's called Fort Scomarus. So those who go to the church, you will see that there are cannons there, Fort Scomarus. So when there's attack, they also inform the castle. You see the visual straight lines. You see that they can inform the castles by signal. They can inform crossbows. When you are on Fort Comoros, you will see the Mukudan. It's called Fort Battenstein. So if you are on Fort Comoros, you can see straight Fort Battenstein, which can communicate with the castle and with the fort. Then on Java Hill, also there was Fort Java. Then on yes, it's Fort Natglas. So you see there's a military circuit. So these are the heritages that we are talking about. And the governor's garden. And the governor's garden, there's a tower which can communicate. So these are tangible assets, okay? Then, infrastructure. You see that Elmina has got gutters. They seem to be dirty. They are not gutters. They are irrigation channels. And water came from a spring at Nanakobejan Square and flowed through. So you see the whole of the new town area is in the form of plantation blocks. In fact, it is from Elmina that things like sugarcane, pineapple, oranges spread. So you stay at Byton Rust. Byton Rust. Byton Rust was an...
There's a place in Cape Town.
Byton Rust. Yes. Yes, and Newtown, you have got Nisa's Garden, Kwesi Trim, they call it Kwesi Tomb, and all that. So there were gardens. So that is also another impact. You see, so now we are talking of agriculture. Now we have talked of military. We have talked of, you see, there was a time there was 1,200 stone houses in Elmina. It is a tangible heritage, Dutch cemetery, etc. So they dotted. Now, I think I'm over talking. I think I'm over. Okay. So, how do we put structural and some of which are intangible in the form of what? Our festivals, etc., etc. The attempt to preserve this heritage, this is the fourth group. The first attempt to preserve Elmina was from your father, Bishop Ando and the rest. They call it Save Elmina Association. Save Elmina Association was concerned and nothing else. They were not concerned with protecting the culture, Bakutwe, Edina Brunya, etc. They would have functioned very well, but I think that in their planning, they did not involve the chief. So the chief actually did not seem to understand your father. Save Elmina. Is Elmina on fire or what? So, you see, it did not touch. Then came the Elmina Cultural Heritage Program, that is in 2006. In fact, Elmina Cultural Heritage was initially to rehabilitate the castle. But we told them that the castle is meaningless if it is not linked to the people of Elmina, of historical, etc. So that was one. Then the second was education. The people must be made to appreciate what they have through education. Then the third was that if we combine this in education and the town is dirty, tourists won't stay. So the next, you are polite, honest, and be able to tell the story of the town. So it was based on tourism, education, then health, waste management, and the rest. Okay, so it was a thing funded by the European, and
How did that go? How did we do?
it went very well. But then we did not put in maintenance structure. Actually let people whose houses were rehabilitated to put in some money. It was not the money which was used for the rehabilitation, but money for maintenance. They formed an association of historical houses, and some people there took the money for their personal use. Allah and the rest. For their personal use. So it is dicey. And also it was politically attractive where the implementation actually took place. So it looked as if MPP had done all. Then they are followed done nothing. So he sacked all the people that we development foundation. The two of them are here. I think they made Mrs. Benjamin the chairperson. Mr. Anani and Kakra are the most active implementation officers.
We would love to hear from them.
Yeah. Without finances from everywhere, anywhere, sometimes Kakra, oh, you have. But he had the passion. And the passion was to preserve. It started as a Elmina Festivals Committee. So Elmina has got 3 major festivals. The Elmina Bronya is the Feast of Reconciliation. And that one too, Dutch have input there. It was to Jojo with our leaders what has gone wrong in the town. And they gave to get a gift. So it's Bor Kenya Afe. They call it Bronya. It's an Elmina festival. Swim and get a gift. You see, festival. You see, the Dutch has also influenced other cultures. Now you are going for marriage, you send 6 pieces of Java print, schnapps, etc. Who told you were doing Java, schnapps, etc.? So things you could buy from Holland now becomes part of our culture of contracting marriage. Okay, so that was it. Then the second one is Kotobon Kase, and that one is done in the night. That, yeah. Please.
What time of year?
That's a week before Baketui, because Saint Anthony is not a god. It is a God's saint. So when a chief is installed, he goes for God's blessing in Saint Anthony's shrine before he steps into the palanquin. It's done in the night. So people don't know of it. And when they are sprinkling, you don't meet them. If you meet them, yes. Yes. And so the other one is Baketui, which you all know. Baketui has got many tenants in it. It is for the tutelar god. It is a period of recollection of what we've done in the past. So there's something, a long period of silence, 6 months, where you don't drum, you don't make noise, etc. So reflect, okay? And it remembers our heroes who died, etc. Okay? There are others that can be done, but the financial logistics, for instance, there's tradition of Nanokobnijan. It's a great oath of a burnt and destroyed Elmina. It's a very big oath and festival for us. And then invited Mrs. Benjamin to help us steer, because the name is Benjamin also has got a goodwill. So they have done that, and one Mr. Bill too. So it's a small group who mean well, but they are not resourced. But they are limited only to festivals. Occasionally, Kakra provides money when there's town cleaning, etc. And this is a very, very diplomatic PA. What is PA? Advocate for all these things. He can talk and he can do many things. Now the fourth is the incoming Elmina heritage. And the Elmina heritage may have to take off and be holistic. It is not only infrastructure.
What happened to our picture of
Yes. You see, because things may not be done in isolation. So it's an artistic impression which leads to Fort Kunrasberg. That's the proper name, Fort Kunrasberg. It's called Jago because there was a church there which was broken down by the Dutch. That is St. James Church. And in its place,
This is Fort St. Jago.
the name is Fort Kunrasberg. Jago, but that is a erroneous name now. I am almost having a pen drive in my mouth. I'm talking and talking, so I think that maybe I should stop here so that when there are questions, I can answer. Thank you.
But something new? What do you not know?
Yeah, I did not know that. I knew about Anamansa, but I knew the name Anamansa. It's actually in your father's book as well. But I did not know that the inexhaustible supply was about water. So the idea that the town would originally have been named for water and not gold, I found quite provocative.
What didn't you know?
Yeah, I didn't know some of the Dutch names that he's just mentioned, but I've had opportunity to be briefed by him. Yeah.
I mean, I'm asking these two in particular because they know Elmina a little bit, and even then we learn. So I think what Anthony did was give us some of the reason why we're here today in terms of how we tell that story. And people in this room actually know a lot more than most other people outside this room. But even us, we learn something every day. So I think it's a great segue where, in terms of this fourth attempt, what is it that we would do different from the first three attempts? But I think the point Anthony made is also here. The second and third attempt, you're part of the implementation of the concept. But the point Anthony makes is and comprehensive and
Without the stakeholders' participation, the Chiefs Palace and
yes. So we've got the Chiefs Palace here with us today, which is for us very important. We haven't gone to the municipal authorities yet, but we do understand that anything we do, if we don't involve all the key stakeholders, will not succeed. So that's the starting point of the effort. And the next part of the effort is we are not reinventing the wheel because a lot has already been done. We want to build on that's been done. And so the question is, how do we do that? Work has been done, a lot of knowledge is around the table. How do we continue to tell that story? So those are two very important elements of this effort. Imagine that, clever people around the room can solve the problem all by ourselves. And then